Melanie Gibbs' 7 pages made me think of the 7 deadly sins, and I thought I'd just put out some discussion points on the 7 deadly sins of Chad Daybell and Laurie Cox Daybell, because just as some reference points to things that they've done, and just as an exercise and a way of thinking about some of the actions that they've taken. And I'll try and make it quick because I think a lot of us could probably talk for 7 hours on this topic, and it's a very deep one. And I mean, obviously this whole situation for these families, it's very complicated, deep, and twisted. But look, I just thought, okay, let's talk about the 7 deadly sins of Chad and Laurie. And I'll just rattle them off for you in case you can't remember them. It's pride, envy, gluttony, greed, lust, sloth, and wrath. I don't think the 7 deadly sins are really anything to do with the Church of Latter-day Saints. I don't think so. From my life experience, it is, it's rooted in Catholicism, and obviously, Dante was very interested in the 7 deadly sins. But anywho, because I grew up in being indoctrinated into the Roman Catholic Church, and I left there when I was around 13, thinking that it was a terrifying psychological time leaving the church. That first time I didn't go to Mass, and for a long time after, I thought, because, it's so supernatural, but I was having really bad feelings of shame. I was starting to have really strange feelings, like people could read my mind, they knew what I was thinking, feeling. It was very extremely uncomfortable for a young girl, a young woman, and I just didn't want to have those disgusting feelings, and I rejected it and stood in a field and thought I was going to get struck by lightning. I was bawling my eyes out, but I think a lot of my history and having those feelings, even this is tied into a lot of psychological experiences that I've had later in life. But anyhow, that's me, and we're actually talking about Chad and Laurie here. So, okay, when you've got the 7 deadly sins, there are I guess you could say, the 7 graces as well. And the 7 deadly sins, they take you away from these graces. They're kind of like the opposites. So we've got pride first, and the opposite of that being humility. And, you can think of pride as vanity, as vainglory. And it's a really negative force. It severs your soul. It's sort of as severing your soul from the ability to be humble, because you're failing to acknowledge others. Everything that you're doing, it's to your own whims. You're serving your own whims before others, even the needs of those that rely on you. It's a very strong love of self, and it's one of the 7 deadly sins that, it perverts to hatred. So you've got pride, envy, and wrath, which are kind of really closely connected. And they're all sort of perverting love toward the actual harm of others. It's just completely acknowledging only your own needs and not acknowledging the needs of others. You're feeling superior, you're feeling better than everyone else, and you basically fail to respond to the needs of others, to caring for others. And I think clearly we can see this at play in Laurie and in Chad. We've got envy. So the opposite, or the grace, would be gratitude. Wow, I mean, gratitude. Did we see a lot of gratitude with Laurie and Chad for the things that they had in their lives already? Chad had a beautiful, kind, supportive wife and 5 children, a home and business, a community. And these things, they no longer were enough for Chad. Laurie certainly had a lot provided for her in life that fulfilled many of her needs. She had a husband who was a successful person. He worked hard. He made a lot of sacrifices with his own lifestyle. He traveled around a lot. He was a good provider. And not only that, but he wanted to be father to 2 children that were Laurie's. And not only that, he converted to her faith because he wanted to understand Laurie. He wanted to be a true partner to Laurie, and he wanted to try to grow into a life together. And that meant, that was he was a good friend to her because he wanted to support her in her things, and he understood how important Laurie's faith was to her, to the point where he converted, and he was trying his best, to develop his spirituality and to understand scriptures and all that batshit crazy stuff. Sorry if I'm offending anybody with that. And, this envy with the grace being gratitude, well, it's different to jealousy, because a jealousy can cause you to cause harm to yourself by your actions and by, not supporting yourself, and jealousy can eat you up and you usually harm yourself. But envy drives you to deprive others of what they have, and it really ties in with pride as one of these perversions. And Dante says it does 3 things. It lowers, excuse me, it does 3 things to you. So if you have envy, it actually makes you do these 3 things to someone, usually in this order. Lower their reputation, feel joy at their misfortune, or I guess, how do you say it? Schadenfreude. I can never say it, but it's a German term for, feeling joy at others' misfortune. And the 3rd step is hatred. And we certainly saw that is exactly how Laurie acted toward Charles. And I want to do this in another video maybe, because otherwise it becomes very long, but also to Joseph Ryan. And can we see that, did Chad and Laurie work together on both people's lives, Joseph and Charles's lives, to lower their reputation? They felt the joy at their misfortune, and they really had a true hatred. But anyway, moving on. Next is gluttony, and the opposite of this is temperance. And you might think, gluttony, isn't that all about food? And yes, it certainly is meant like that too, quite literally, but it can be selfishness. So what are you doing when you're being selfish and it's bringing you toward mortal sin? I guess, well, you're going to follow your own impulses, aren't you? Your needs go before all others. That's that selfishness. That's that gluttonous expression in your life. Everything is for you. for your good. And you could even say, okay, imagine Laurie and Chad believing in this holy war. What are you doing in a war? You are wanting to be the last people standing. In war, gluttony could relate to the killing of others to survive. And self-explanatory, really, with regards to Laurie and Chad. Greed is next. So the opposite of greed would be charity, or, generosity. And greed can be known as avarice. It could be covetousness, and greed, really, you're putting your needs before others, because of what you want, and it leads you to want more than sort of your share, more than what you need to to be happy with, nearly. And I really think we see a lot of greed with Laurie and Chad and all manner of things, and not only money, but everything about their lifestyle. And if you look at the grace, if you look at charity and generosity, I mean, if people are going to say, well, Laurie was very charitable and generous because what she was doing was with this home teaching and with this greeting of new people coming into the church, she was extremely friendly. She wanted people to be comfortable. She gave of her own time, but everything that she was doing there, you could see that as actually self-serving and greedy, because it was actually all to serve her. Her friendliness, her charity, her giving was because of what she got out of it. It wasn't done out of the goodness of her heart. So lust, opposite being chastity, charity, I had that in my head, but that's the opposite for greed. So lust, you've got the grace being chastity, and lust really makes you a slave to the devil, they could say. And lust is a really disordered love of good things, perhaps. It doesn't have to be sexual. It can be a lust for everything, the best, everything that you feel that you deserve. So it can be things like, it can lead to I'll just quickly just say, look, 7 deadly sins, it's because they lead to the root of mortal sin. So you've got things like lust leading to fornication, rape, bestiality, adultery, the desire for a lot more money and for power, and pretty much goes without saying, doesn't it, how we can relate this to Chad and Laurie. So let's go to sloth. And you might struggle with sloth as well, because, wasn't this, just this depression nearly, this lack of trying, this lack of verve. It's a sin of omission, and it's a hindrance. It's, it's a not doing sort of thing. And it relates to being a sloth in the mental, spiritual, pathological, and physical aspects of life. And if you're going to look at the opposite, it would be that striving for real understanding, for truth, for seeking out counsel when you need it, not thinking you know everything, but just that true search for knowledge, feelings of piety, for being really in fear of the Lord. Faith has a really, fear of the Lord is really connected in a lot of religions with faith. And I don't think Laurie and Chad were looking for any real understanding, were they, or any true wisdom, because they were the source of everything, and whatever served them, that was their truth, that was their knowledge. They didn't seek the right counsel because they were the be all and end all, the gatherer and the top dog on this planet, and they had divine knowledge, and actually they didn't have fear of the Lord because they believed everything was going to go their way, everything was going to part like the Red Sea, and just step by step they were going to be, transported forward. And they make me so sick. When Laurie, we know that Laurie loved scripture and everything like that, but this is really Sloth relating to Laurie and Chad. It's ignoring all 7 gifts of grace, really, and I'll just say that. Then you've got wrath. Okay, so excuse me, wrath, or the grace being virtue, or patience. And wrath people can think of as anger. And sorry, I'll just go back to Sloth. You know how Laurie was doing all this work, she's trying to learn and everything like that. There was actually no work to exercise truly moral and spiritual decisions. She expressed sloth so perfectly in the absolute absence of morality. I just want to say that. But with wrath or anger, when this anger is directed at the innocent, this is extremely dangerous. And this is how, pride, envy, and wrath are 3 very dangerous parts of these sins. When anger is directed at the innocent, your actions are uncontrolled vengeance. There's impatience. And we know that there were very many innocent parties whom anger was directed at. And what happened to them? And we're talking children, and we're talking ex-husbands, and we see vengeance, don't we? Dante, he talks about perversion and corruption, and it's just love of everything is all about love of self and everything for self. So there's the 7 deadly sins relating to Chad and Laurie. I did want to talk at one point about Joseph Ryan's death. I know there's been a lot talked about, and I sort of just like to, open up just these other little discussion points. I'm not saying being original or anything like that with any information, but, just ways of trying to understand these people, or the way we feel about what they've done, or how we individually understand what they did. But the interesting thing with Joseph Ryan and the timing of everything around Chad's influence, there's several interesting scenarios there, and I do want to talk about that, because I think that's another subject, but that's very interesting. So I might talk about that. I might make a video tomorrow about that, and discuss Chad's influence, Chad's knowledge and Chad's light bulb moments, because you can just see how fast everything was starting to move, how exponentially these evil deeds were being carried out, how quickly they started happening. It was kind of like Chad took little frog Laurie and he put her into that pot of water, and he brought that water to a boil. And I just really wanted to talk about the testing of the water in regards to Joseph Ryan, whether it was as a direct influence to what happened, or whether he used what happened, or whether it was just a completely spontaneous sparking of psychosis in Laurie, because Joseph Ryan, when he died, she had already been stirring that pot. In 2007, her brother Alex had been, he did a 3-month stint for aggravated assault. He attacked Joseph with a stun gun because Laurie had been telling him that Colby Ryan had been sexually abused. But, this was thrown out because, nothing made sense to law enforcement. It didn't really match up. And this is months of investigation. And I think there was a polygraph test done. And Tylee never, ever had a bad word to say about Joseph. And, but, she'd been stirring that pot way back then. And, Chad's got knowledge of this. So was this something he's used in 2018 to get something else happening, or is it just this spontaneous thing where Laurie is getting so deeply into this crackpot spirituality, her ideas are getting more and more wild, and she is reading Chad's book? And is it because she's in contact with Chad also? When Joseph's died, has this confirmed to her that she is on the right path, she is righteous, everything she believes is actually coming true? Holy shit, is that the beginning of an actual true psychosis? Was Chad already in her head? Because he had 7 months from that time to really get a lot of information from Laurie, and that helped him produce that October 2018 Naughty Nice list. And I think, they hadn't physically met, we don't think. So their relationship wasn't infidelity as such. It might have been it was emotionally cheating, but I think they physically began an affair very quickly after meeting. But through this time in the past, what has Chad's been, either his involvement or what has he been learning and then used? Because whilst Laurie is showing signs of possibly even dark triad, she's very manipulative, etc., etc. We've seen that with her history from Joseph Ryan onward, and the ability to carry out things with such a blank effect. She also she had no grief after Joseph Ryan. She told Tylee very, very bad things about him. She didn't even tell Annie that Joseph was dead. Annie is Joseph's sister. She was telling Tylee that the world's a better place. She had him quickly cremated. It was very whack. She's got some dark traits anyway. But what has Chad done with his little frog in this pot of water to, yeah. Oh man, anyway, gosh, I have just rambled on. All I really wanted to do was make a 10-minute video about the 7 deadly sins of Chad and Laurie, just as some food for thought and just to think about. I mean, you can relate. They embody these, I believe, to an absolute T. I know there's many people that will be able to talk about it better than I can. But I think, I mean, I'm so very curious around Joseph Ryan. I know we all are, but, at first I know it was looking like, oh my God, did Laurie, is she this Black Widow that started then? And then, well, it could be a lot more sick and convoluted than that, or, yeah. Anywho, look, I'm just going to sign off really quickly because, I mean, how boring. Yet again, if you are going to listen, probably just put it on 2.0 speed and get through it. And I will chat to you later.